Welcome to HTO Football. I'm Andrew Timbrell, and today we're joined by Spurs development coach Nick Hardy. Tom and I once shared the school playground with Nick using jumpers for goalposts. Fast forward 15 years, we speak to him about his coaching journey and the responsibility all coaches have when nurturing young people.
So, welcome to HTO Football, Nick. Great to have you on. How are things?
Yeah, very good. Very good. Thank you, considering. I appreciate you having me. Looking forward to some good chat. So yeah,
Not at all.
thanks.
Yeah, not at all. I mean, I was speaking to Andrew before you joined, and we sort of like, obviously, us three have known each other for many years, and huge football's part of our lives in a big way growing up. But from a coaching perspective, if you could give a little sort of like a little backstory, a little context to where that started for you, where was that? What lit the fire that you go, actually, do you know what? Coaching could be the thing for me.
Yeah, it's probably a journey and a pathway I think about often, because I suppose it's being shaped all the time as well based on previous experiences and opportunities at the moment. But yeah, it's all, football's always been at the centre of everything, whether a kick around in the playground or a heated discussion about mid-table mediocrity with certain clubs and passionate discussions about rivalries. And so it's been a constant in my life and as a family, and always kind of pursued the opportunity to play. And as time went on and kind of those players that were attached to academies or, finding themselves into the professional game, I think as time went on, I realised I wasn't going to be, I wasn't going to fulfil something that I wanted to do as a younger kid to be a football player, etc. But always wanted to be attached to the game or sport actually in general in one way or another, and flirted with all the other possibilities that come with being around a sporting environment. And it wasn't really coaching itself. Really wasn't until probably I found myself at university. Really. I mean, before that, family members, I had an uncle who volunteered as a coach locally, and remember kind of popping along once or twice to support him or just, be an extra body. But yeah, the real opportunity arose at university. And I remember particularly while studying, one of my lecturers said, she pulled me aside, and it generally wasn't until this moment when she said, and it was a practical module where we had to deliver a session to our classmates, and the lecturer said, Nick, you will be an educator of some sort in sport, whether it's a teacher, like a school physical education teacher, or a coach. And she went on to say, have you ever thought about that? And that hadn't really crossed my mind. So that was kind of the catalyst. And that then led, not really snowballed from there, but the opportunity to give coaching a go in America, supported the women's side of the game at the university wasn't a thing where I was studying. So that kind of started, and I kind of threw my hat in the ring there to give that a go. And all of that kind of just, spiraled from there in a positive way. I'm kind of where I am now. And I think in the coaching world or player development world, it's, something that's ongoing. You can't stand still, and enjoying what I'm doing. And I think there's a long way still to go, and obviously further opportunities. But fortunate to be where I am now, and enjoying the opportunity in coaching and working with some talented young players for sure.
You touched on that experience in the US, Nick. I'd just like your thoughts really on, because obviously that's a part of the world that has progressed massively in the last sort of 2 decades, I suppose.
Yeah.
What was your experience like out there? What was their mindset towards you as obviously an English coach, and how they play the game out there?
Yeah. Again, probably looking at that as an experience, because it was such a positive one, because I don't want to use the word expert as such, but we were going out there to deliver and being seen as our national game and teaching them how to do it. Particularly in my first experience, that was in, blimey, my first opportunity in America would have been like 2007. And then I kind of rolled it out like every summer. And when I graduated, I took a full-time position for like 10 months, I think it was. So actually kind of seen a little bit of growth even in that 3 to 4 year period. So it was a positive experience that probably harnessed my desire or increased the passion to coach, really. And you were held in relatively high esteem because they were kind of hanging on every word or your experience. And by that time I had nothing special, but had played or represented academy at a young age, played like under 18 semi-professional football, that kind of stuff. And for them, they don't really have that structure. So to have explained I'd have played at like a very, very low level, but still being like tier 8 or tier 9 and explaining the pathway of football, it was really that really kind of, I suppose, supported being able to really have an impact. It still surprises me now that they as a nation, they haven't quite probably reached some of the heights that I would have thought as a national team probably. I think MLS massively, is really on the up, growing. You look at the players that are going out there, and there's more and more going there to further their career rather than, I think a decade or so ago it was kind of deemed as maybe end of term kind of retirement process. But you talk to or you listen to some of them and they talk about it, being a springboard for their career, particularly young players or players that have come back and gone and played at another level.
Yeah, I was going to say, I thought in that sort of ex-player or maybe Premier League legend that goes out there and like a Zlatan that went out there, I didn't know if that progress had maybe slightly slowed because of the China maybe thing as well, where you're getting more younger professionals wanting to put themselves on the map now instead of players that you could argue are past it maybe.
Yeah, definitely. I think listen, financially it's a big thing, and America, one thing that's always amazed me with American sport in a whole, and it's at the moment there's a bit of a buzz with the Michael Jordan documentary and all that stuff, and I'm not sure. I've been watching again with the downtime, watching a lot of the Amazon Prime stuff. I was watching one with an American college. So that kind of sporting recruitment or development is very different in America. And I think again, further to that, the management of wage caps and all that kind of stuff, probably means it's a little bit different if that's the journey you make stateside. And I would say my experience or being involved in the game or watching, people make that move. They're a lot younger or the players tend to be a little bit younger now and using it as a springboard rather than what it used to be. But it's growing out there. I think that the big one thing I remember talking to friends and families, or even I suppose families out there, I was fortunate to be looked after in a host family capacity. And the parent or the families always used to say they didn't understand soccer. They said, how on earth can you play a sport for 90 minutes and shake hands and draw at the end? Like they don't have that. They don't have that idea. All their sports, if no one's winning, it goes into added time or overtime until there's physically a winner. So, I think that was a bit of a shackle early doors, but it's grown and I'm very grateful for being able to work in various capacities out there across 3 or 4 years or seasons.
Yes, that clearly shaped you. I mean, obviously you've come back to England, and the last few years you've been at Spurs, and that's got to be particularly fantastic for yourself, being a Spurs fan, which we won't touch on too much. But how did that come about?
I mean, I'm doubly blessed in a way without being cheesy. It's often doesn't feel like a job, but also to be doing it for a club I followed and still a big fan of. I think for me, I would still be as passionate about what I do, regardless of who I did it for. It is definitely a double bonus in a way. I mean, it came about. It was a little bit of the cliche that people talk about often, kind of who you know. It's not what you know; it's who you know.
Yeah.
So that started the process through a family friend, it kind of just gained momentum from there. But I had a couple of challenges along the way. I laugh about it with a colleague of mine now who was part of the interview process. And I'd come back from the States and was playing at the time. And for the first time in forever, I picked up like 2 or 3 back-to-back injuries. So I kind of thought the opportunity had gone. But yeah, I stuck at it and made sure I kept in contact, and the opportunity just kind of built up. And again, the coaching journey, where I am now has kind of come from, way back when I first joined and first worked or I suppose delivered as a coach in this country, way back in the kind of community schemes, in the school programs, all of those kind of things. So it's about an 8-year journey now. All of that has kind of been, or where I am now, has been born from working school programs, after school, community stuff, variety of programs with disability, kind of kids and adults, hard to reach people or participants, and even kind of international programs as well. So yeah, it's a journey, and hopefully one that can continue for a little while yet.
I think carrying on from that, really, Nick, as well, that you obviously work, in part of your role, you work with children that are primary school age. Is that right? Around there?
Yeah, predominantly.
Yeah, I mean, I was looking the other day. There was, I think, is it West Ham and a couple of other clubs? They have academies that run from sort of under 8s. Even, I just wonder what your thoughts are on the kind of the balance at that age in your role to find and grasp, where you've got kids that are 8 or 9 years of age that you're trying to develop inevitably to perform for Tottenham Hotspur one day. But also they're such a young age and a fragile age where their well-being and their mental health side of things. What kind of measures are in place in your role and at your club at that level to sort of harness and make sure that those individuals grow, as well as Tottenham Hotspur managing to develop talent, basically?
I think the biggest challenge is in a population of the capital. We're very fortunate that there's an abundance of football clubs at so many various levels, and I think ultimately academy football now is in a position that it's never been in, and for me, in a positive way, in terms of opportunities and players younger than ever being able to embark on the journey. I think the difficulty is there almost becomes a competition. I think we have to, a lot of this is personal, but it's stripping it right back to, ensuring that there isn't a loss of love for the game.
It's fun to play the game.
It's still fun. The kids have got to be at the heart of it. It's a very challenging environment. It's quite competitive, but I think it's all about potential as well. There's some really severe words when it comes to working with young people in terms of like recruitment or
exactly.
And I I try and spend a lot of time, again, personally staying away from those words, because it makes it feel such a harsh environment.
Like a business, isn't it?
And that's, for me, that's a horrible thought. It should still be a football opportunity of very similarly to the grassroots environment. That there isn't a competitive outcome, and there shouldn't be at that age. And again, going back to the potential, it's the development. I think obviously there's a holy grail, but the facts and figures are out there for everyone to read, the percentages, and obviously sometimes the bad press as well. But it's about developing the individual, I think, and sometimes you can easily kind of become consumed by the football and getting up that ladder to become a player here, there, and everywhere or wherever. When really the football should be at the heart, but actually there's a whole kind of abundance of attributes that should be developed and grown in those young people.
It needs to be child-centered, doesn't it?
Yeah, for sure.
Is that? Do you think where the satisfaction comes from then? Because we're really fortunate, we're very privileged to have a relationship and a partnership with Football Beyond Borders, and they do a lot of work in schools around football and how that can be a driver for social change. But as a coach yourself, then is that something that really actually gives the satisfaction when you're helping provide that development to those individuals at that age, over and above necessarily their development on the football pitch?
Yeah, 100%. And I think, again, the longer I'm around it, the more you see that and the more that comes to fruition. But that's certainly been, for me, the main crux of it. Not just now. When I first got into it, it was, the opportunity to work with young people and to help them develop and, yes, ultimately achieve their dreams, but actually be able to do something they couldn't do before, or become, well-rounded individuals, taking them away from other distractions and, not forgetting everything else that comes with them being young people. But it's definitely, the warmth and the inspiration for development and improving and, being part of that for sure.
I think this push as well has come in light of the dark stories that we've heard in the last decade or so around the coaching scandals at certain clubs. I think it's wonderful to see such a great response. There's so much positive work that goes on. And I think long may that continue, really, because we've heard some quite shocking stuff that's been going on. And hopefully now with safeguarding measures in place, I'm sure that you can just explain a little bit about that, Nick.
Yeah, definitely. I think, one thing I always say is that the coaching fraternity, there's a better knowledge out there than ever has been. There's a better, development for us as coaches, the courses, the detail that they go into and everything. And that's, that encompasses it all. When we're developing as coaches, it's not it sounds very silly, but it's not just the football, it's the person,
exactly,
it's the background, it's the family. And we're, again, personally, I think it's something I've always had an eye on and been aware of, but now that's how everything is delivered. I think, and because of the nature, and you touch on some of the dark stories, but also I think not only because of that, but because of the nature of what we do as coaches, you're in the firing line. It's a bit of a
eye lines now, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. You have to be keep an eye on.
I think there's a key word as well you mentioned earlier, Nick, education, isn't it? It's education for these individuals, and I think the whole reason why La Masia in Barcelona, for example, is so highly regarded, that child-centered approach where the education is tied in with their football experience. Yeah,
for sure. And that is, something I learn more and more about every season. And I think it is something that probably not enough that are outside of the industry see is that life after the game, or the life if you don't make the holy grail or cross the line. There's so much more done now than ever, and yet these young people are in much better positions than ever to be successful in whatever they put their mind to outside of football. Now, whether that becomes before a career or after, and I think again that's just the kind of emphasis that's put on that now, and again that encompasses the safeguarding, the well-being, all of that, because that is a big thing for sure.
I think that's been a step change in English football. It's been very recent, really, and it's nice to hear from you to say that, someone slightly on the inside, to see that's coming and changing, because in England, I think like you said, it was the holy grail or nothing for many years, in terms of you either became a footballer or you're on the scrap heap. And we were looking at actually other areas. Football can be so positive for so many lives and so many families, and there's so many facets of that. There's development of the individuals from a coaching perspective, but even you look at other areas of the game like officiating and refereeing and laws of the game. Those kind of areas in England probably haven't had the focus in the last 20, 30 years that other countries are giving it, and it's nice to start to see that change, and hopefully that will change the quality of the refs that we eventually have. But you know what I mean, basically showing that these children, that the game can do so much good, whether you become a Premier League footballer or not. If you do, fantastic, more power to you. But actually, there's so much good that could be done elsewhere.
We often hear as well, don't we, in documentary series, about how the game needs to retain these retired footballers, that they need to become coaches or whatnot. But I was also thinking of those kids that are at 16 and 17, and then they're told, you know what, I'm sorry, but it's not for you. And then what measures and what programs are put in place, how those are communicated to those young people, to make sure that they are retained in the profession as well, of some sort, like Tom mentioned, officiating or even coaching or something like that, really.
Yeah, I think there's so many levels to the game, that there's often many opportunities to still kind of pursue playing, at certain levels, and certainly again internationally. The amount of players that not necessarily. We're not talking, La Liga or Bundesliga. There's again, across the continent, there's many divisions in all those countries, and I think there's more and more younger players pursuing that to keep up their playing opportunity. I think one thing that, and again, this is probably experience with colleagues who do this on a day-to-day basis, but the managing of education and football together. So that college program is something that's becoming really, really big, I think, in the country, or has been over the last few years. And again, a lot of people, or a lot of colleagues that I work with, that becomes like their day-to-day job across the capital. And players there are acquiring their coaching qualifications, their referee qualifications, as well as representing a college team that then compete in national leagues, and again, I think they become an option for whether it's recruiters or scouts to go and see. And again, the stigma now of one big change and one big shift for me is that there's so many entry points into the game now, that there are people breaking in at 13, 14, 15, 16 and beyond, and I think correct me if I'm wrong, but I remember, at our age, it was kind of, if you're not anywhere by, 11 or 12, forget it, kind of thing. So
you hear the stories, don't you, of Ian Wright or Drogba, the really sort of very rare late entries. But you're right. Yeah, you almost wanted to feel like, unless you were at 13, then you were you were done, really.
So there's more of that now. Again, it doesn't necessarily mean it's a platform to get in at the top level, but the opportunity to play in this country is, I think, one of the best around. So
it's interesting actually when we're talking about this now, where I'm thinking about a little bit like me at that age, where I sort of felt I wasn't made to feel like this at all. I just felt like, obviously, as you know, when I went to Foster's when I was in my late teens, early 20s, and then the passion went before that, really. I kind of got to a stage where I was playing academy football, and then I felt like, well, I couldn't play it for real, in inverted commas. So I just felt like I had to focus on something else. Whereas what we're saying now is, it's interesting because, maybe now Andrew in 2020 at 13, 14 years of age might have a different outlook, possibly.
Yeah, it definitely makes you think, that you could reignite that fire at 18 or 19 with a college program, and they don't have to necessarily be attached to anything big. But again, I've got a really close friend of mine who, part of his college program, allows players to, on the back end of it, go and acquire a scholarship at American colleges and things like that. And again, that extends that opportunity and things like that. So
it's a really interesting debate. Actually, I hadn't even thought about it then, Nick. But I think that it's probably the only sport where, that second tier level isn't necessarily sort of encouraged or actively progressed, until recent times, because as you say, you grow up and so if you don't make it, you kind of give up, you stop playing. Whereas, if you compare that to other sports like golf, where you have a handicap system, you can be in clubs and play forever, in different things. And
sure.
I think, although there's the Sunday league stuff, like you do kind of get to an age where you think, well, I can't do this for real anymore. So what's the point? But actually, there's so many avenues you can still stay involved with the
definitely.
game.
I think, obviously, with the coaching side of things as well, like you kind of look back, and I'm sure we all heard on the sidelines when we were playing school football or for our teams on Sundays, like, kick it long, put it in row Z. If in doubt, put it out. I'm sure those are phrases that aren't coming out of your mouth on the grass these days.
I like to think.
How do you feel? How's that changed? Do you feel as the modern game becomes very much about the ball stays on the floor pretty much 75% of the time now, and goalies are told to be playing with the players in training? And is that a young kids being told that at 7 and 8?
Yeah, I think again the education of coaches nowadays is just far superior, in my opinion, than it ever was, and I think it's benefiting the sport as a whole. I'm super impressed. When I get the opportunity to watch grassroots football or have discussion with grassroots coaches. I think the toughest thing is a lot of that is volunteering, and it tends to be someone who, maybe in the first instance doesn't want to do it, or they're juggling a day-to-day job, and it just becomes a pain. But in the main, I think, the education for those guys out there is incredible. And then, up to kind of academy level, again, it's the education, and it is pretty consistent regardless of what level you're delivering at. So the knowledge we're being prepared, or the way we're being prepared, and the knowledge that's being shared is better than it ever has been, in my opinion. And I think that's better for the game at all the levels. However, there's always an individual or a personal take on how to deliver things, or what your philosophy is, or what your playing ethos might be. But I would agree. There's definitely been a swing in how the game is maybe coached or delivered. But again, for me, I think one of the biggest challenges that comes with that is a lot of people I've seen, or the stories you hear, again, probably at grassroots level, or they tend to then deliver the coaching or the practice in the game to look as much like a senior team or first team as possible. And I think that then all of a sudden removes everything from the player centered and the fun and the enjoyment. So it's a fine balancing act, because you want to be empowered with the knowledge, but there's a time to the time in a player's development or pathway to drip in the certain bits and pieces. It's a lot of it. I think it can't be that structured so early on. It can't be. There's no formula. It's there can be
no right answer, is there?
So,
and like you mentioned a minute ago, Nick, the whole kind of thing of making sure that personal touches are still left on coaching, where we don't want to go maybe down a route where it's like everyone has to play the Pep way. Like Tom always talks about. You always talk about cycles, Tom, don't you? And how that maybe there isn't so much of a range at the moment. If you look at the Premier League table, for example, you could mention someone like a Burnley or maybe a Palace, but most sides you would say are trying to play one way. I mean, that sounds a little bit kind of too blanket.
No, but I think I know exactly what you mean, and it's I think it's quite accurate, if I'm honest. It's almost not as simple as that, but it is that same that kind of idea. I think a big thing for me in football and coaching and again, I'm trying not to remove myself from the environment I'm in, but personality is such a big thing, and I think you've got to have a little bit of flavour sometimes, and
that's why Klopp's doing so well, isn't it? The image is just so unique.
And that rubs off on the players, and for me the psyche is such a big thing.
It's not it's not a Guardiola light, is it?
No,
it's his own.
Yeah, exactly. And I think there's, again, it's the understanding that it's more than, I think, you can be quite narrow-minded and think it's just football tactics, and maybe creep into technique sometimes. But for me, it's a bigger picture and it's individual. We're working with so many individuals, it doesn't work for them all, and it's kind of getting them on the.
It's funny how I just thought in our chat there was going to be a Klopp or Guardiola somewhere. It just had to come up, didn't it? Really. We've got a nice counter-attack challenge for you here, Nick. Tom's gonna fire some questions at you, so get ready. You might need to just give yourself a dust down.
Right, but hang on now. What we got here? Have I got one-word answers, or am I A and B, or?
Yeah, pretty much one word or two words. Just rapid, quick questions. Nothing too strenuous.
I'm sweating already.
We'll go through it then. Yeah. Player you'd love to coach.
Player I would love to coach. Blimey. I don't know whether I could put a name on it. Just like flair players that like full of audaciousness and audacity, and selfishly, I'd love to coach a player that could teach me a thing or two. I think I kind of stand away. So you're outstanding kind of.
We've got a word count on this, Nick.
You're killing rapid fire challenge.
Cristiano Ronaldo, surely.
All right, that might be an inclination to a later question. This one, best player you've seen live.
Jeez Louise, too many to mention.
No, we played together at Ravens, mate.
Yeah, I was going to say, are we talking professional?
Either or.
I'm going based on his ability to change a game. Rafael van der Vaart.
Nice. Favorite manager apart from Jose? You can't go Jose. Current manager.
I think Jurgen Klopp.
Spurs to win the Champions League or England to win the World Cup?
England to win the World Cup.
Favorite North London derby memory?
David Bentley.
Messi or Ronaldo?
This is going to get so many comments. Ronaldo.
Oh.
Ronaldo's winning 2-0, isn't he, Tom?
Yeah, 2-1.
2-1. Yeah.
And finally, your dream dinner table. You've got 3 guests, dead or alive, to come along for dinner at yours.
Football related, obviously.
Well, yeah, but if you want to throw a random one in there,
I was going to start with Michael Jackson and wow, 3. That is a.
I've always thought Brian Clough would be a great one.
Yeah,
mate, throw everyone
I'd
out.
Probably go. So, I'd go for a goal based on playing.
Yeah.
There'd be a space for a goalkeeper.
Yep.
So I'd go Peter Schmeichel.
Nice.
I'd go, coaching. Do you know who I'd really like to pick brains with? Is Gareth Southgate at the moment.
Yeah.
Because I like it. I feel there's a team
doing a great job.
Yeah, talking about that whole experience rather than just the football. So I'd love to pick his brain. And then the player, and I'd probably go with I think I'd have to go with like a Maradona.
Nice. And also that's going to mean you're going to have a great party in the evening as well.
Yeah, great party.
That's what I was thinking. I was thinking if in doubt, there'd be one hell of a party.
Yeah. After the serious chat with Gareth, you can
Yeah.
I wonder how those two would get on. I'm not so sure. Personality mixes, but that's the best.
I'll sit in between the two of them.
Yeah, that's the best dinner parties, isn't it? Brilliant stuff.
Thanks, Nick, mate. Really appreciate this.
Yeah, it's been a fantastic chat.
No, brilliant. Really enjoyed that. It's good to share, but also nice to have 2 experienced voices to help me elaborate and also share ideas and discuss in more detail. So
absolutely,
I might get you a retweet.
Yeah. We'll get you out there. No, I appreciate it. Take it easy, mate.
HTO Football is delighted to announce Alfie Tate as the winner of our first competition. Alfie will be receiving a copy of Zonal Marking by Michael Cox in the post. For more competitions and news from us, please follow us on all your usual social media channels at HTO Football. My name is Ricky Carbis, and you'll be hearing more from me, Andrew and Tom in a new HTO feature coming soon called Changing Room. See you next time.